So coming up today on Streaming Idiots, it's going to be the old question. Are they geniuses or is it a bunch of phooey? We're talking about the vMix reference systems. The vMix guys that sit around, they don't have anything to do except sit around all day thinking of, oh, we could build vMix in the bottom of a trash can. No, I'm just teasing. Anyway, we're going to talk about their reference systems on today's show. So hang around. We'll be back in, we'll be right back. What time? We'll be back in about 10 minutes. So sit tight. We're just letting everybody gather. You know how it goes. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Check, 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 check. We've got audio. Might be a little hot. Let's take a look at that. Got 2 decibels of gain with it. We're going to drop those off. And yeah, that's not peaking quite so badly. And we've got we have thunderstorms in the area. So that's kind of interesting. Let's see if we can show that. That's our area. You can see the little slider down here where it shows what is current time. So we're going to be covered up in rain. That's us right there, the blue dot. And today we're going to talk about vMix reference systems. Woohoo! I can't wait. It, it seems like a simple thing to say, this will do this. There is simple and there is simple. And don't confuse one with the other. Yes. So I don't know if you can hear the thunder in the background. Kaboom. Audio is a little bassy. Okay. Well, let's see if we can fix that. We've probably got some EQ on there. Yeah. Let me pull some of that down. I mean, every guy wants their voice to sound, low and commanding. Is that better? Or is that just or is it just me? So we'll see. I'll pull down the EQs a little bit. We'll see if that makes a difference. So the weather, we had a quick shower and it's gone. So we're back to normal now. That's better. Okay, good, good. And I'm feeling a little bassy today. So you never know. Never know. I had somebody call me yesterday, maybe Monday. No, it was yesterday morning. They wanted me to remote in. They were having trouble with their system. Wasn't a customer, but they sounded desperate. So I remoted into their system, and their render time at idle was over 110. I mean, render time should be like 3. I mean, here we are. We're streaming. We're not recording, but we're streaming 1080p 60 at AV1. And we got 4 milliseconds. Oh, it popped to 5 milliseconds. But 110 would just be unusable. And they were trying to stream to YouTube and to Facebook, and they were having trouble because it was choppy and lagging. And Facebook and YouTube were complaining that they weren't sending enough data. So, yeah. Oh, and then we said, okay, let's take a look at what your system is made of, and popped up system information, and their CPU was a 1.3 gigahertz. I'm like, no, I don't think that's quite enough horsepower. So, oh, goodness gracious. So I said, your system's not fast enough. That's the problem. They said, yeah, somebody told us we needed to replace the old system, so they got this system instead. And it worked great with the old system, but this new one has never worked. Like, there you go. There you go. That's what happens sometimes. So, no, I didn't pull the old trick. But you have to say yes, even if somebody doesn't give you any changes, you have to say, yeah, that made a difference, because otherwise you're being picky. And there's no worse problem, I think, in a relationship than being picky. Nobody wants to be picky, right? We'll see. We will see. We will see. So anyway, so that my conversation yesterday morning kind of preempted what I had planned for today. And I was like, you know what? We need to go through the vMix reference systems again. And then I can point somebody to this video and say, come back, take a look at the video, look at the systems, and and see how close you are to what you think you need. And yeah, and sometimes it's a real judgment call. I'm getting a little shadow here, right there. Need a little makeup. Anyway, had somebody call me this morning, and they want to do 5 4K cameras. No, this was an email. Check that. 5 4K cameras. 5 4K cameras. And wanted to know if the Topaz would be okay. Well, the Topaz is rated at 4 4K cameras and 2 4K replay outputs. Okay. Or maybe it's just 2 cameras. I'll have to check. Anyway, we'll get into it in a minute. And, I'm not sure. It says 4 cameras, but they're not going to be using replay. So can we get 5 cameras? Because we would be doing 4 cameras ISO in order to get replay. So, don't know. I've actually written vMix and asked them, tell me, what, can we read between the lines on that? What kind of fudge factor do we have? And I think that I'll check in. Let's see. We'll get into it in a minute. But I think the reference systems are sort of the minimum spec. So we would want something faster, stronger, and more powerful, and yeah, not necessarily bigger, but more powerful. Okay. So, coming up on showtime, just 1 minute. I have a problem that I want to share with you, because maybe Maybe you can commiserate. I don't think you can fix it because it's me. It's a me problem. But I realized that that YouTube, it's raining again, that YouTube has, when I start a video, let me put it this way. When I start a video, it's generally with a background and some music kind of letting you know what's coming on. But it's nice to have a little comment at the very beginning so people know what's really going on, and then you can flip to the graphic. And a lot of people have a short intro of their pre-recorded stuff, that might go 10, 15 seconds. Well, this is all live, so I'm not quite sure when I'm going to come back to the pre-show. So I just sort of leave it open-ended, but I would like to put something in at the beginning. So I did that today. I think it worked pretty well. If you get a chance, go back and take a look after this is over, or you can just run it back right now, and leave me a comment below and see if it worked. But last week when I did it, I didn't have any audio because I forgot to plug it in, because it's one of the last things I do. Oh yeah, let's get some audio and we'll be going with that. But no. Nope. All right, so let's go here. There we go. That looks good. I don't know why we had the old one up there. Just one of those things. One of those things. All right. So anyway, I turned on the alert in vMix so that it would tell me I didn't have any audio. But now if I pause for well, it's probably hearing the rain in the background now. But if I pause for any amount of time, it flashes up audio, low audio or something like that. I was like, I don't want that. I don't want that. Gee, my knee. So there you go. Boy, that is a fact. That is a fact. I remember the very first live stream I ever did, Tommy, was to a page that somebody would allow me to stream to, and the image on the page was about that big. About that big, maybe a little bit bigger, and maybe you could expand the screen, and it was standard definition. And we had one camera. And we didn't have any graphics. I mean, it was I think we just did it straight to was it Ustream? No. It was somebody that let us use their page. So it was just like our webcam to their page. Gee whiz. It was pretty primitive. Hello, Dewey. Yeah, I finally made one. Well, you will regret that. You will regret that. I hope you have a sandwich. Okay, let's get this show on the road. We're ready to go live. Let's go live. Here we go. Here we go. And let's do that. Oh yeah, baby. All right. And again, hat tip to Martin K for the intro and the outro. I love it. Continue to love it. It's just weird enough to appeal to me. So I'm delighted that everybody's here today. Today is going to be, it's going to be not very exciting. Welcome, Eric. Glad you're here. Welcome. Otis, glad you're here. You guys will get a lot out of this. We're going to talk about vMix reference systems. And they've changed over the years. And they didn't used to have them. But finally they just said, people are trying to run this stuff on a bicycle-powered PC, and that just won't work. And so they developed a system, not a system, but a set of different specifications for different needs. The person using one camera is going to be different than the person that wants to use 24 cameras. The person that is going to take one vMix caller and some graphics is different than the person that's going to use 8 camera instant replay. So just saying, one size doesn't fit all. This is not a pair of pantyhose. I don't even know if pantyhose is one size fit all. I don't wear them, just for the record. So let's go to, what are we going to go to? We're going to go to a screen capture of the reference systems, and we'll start there. And what we want to do with that, patience, there we go. All right, so this is the reference systems, and it's on this page, vMix reference systems. So yeah, and it's on the, if you go to their website and go to products and then come down to reference systems, there they are. And we'll start with the Sapphire because that's the first one. And the Sapphire is essentially a 4-camera laptop. And the reason it's a 4-camera laptop is because it needs some assistance. And so what it's going to use is Thunderbolt 3 for up to 4 cameras, or USB 3 and this Magewell capture for up to two cameras, or 2 of these for up to 2 cameras. So those plug in USB. It's just a USB dongle, nothing fancy. And we used to use them all the time, and then found out that sometimes you could use 3, and on a rare occasion 4, but it depended on how many individual USB controllers were built into the laptop. Not ports now, but controllers. So one controller might control 2 ports, might control 3 ports. Or there might be, 4 controllers that are controlling 5 ports. I don't know, whatever it is. But it was really rare that you had one that could do more than 2. So if your laptop had maybe 3 USB ports on it, you'd have to do some research or trial and error to see how many controllers. So sometimes we could get 2 of these USB dongles plugged into 2 different ports if they were on separate controllers, but they wouldn't work on the same controller. So yeah, so that's what they're talking about there, is the USB Magewell capture, up to 2 of those for 2 cameras only. Or if you've got Thunderbolt, you can use the Aja IO 4K Plus, or you can build your own in a Thunderbolt expansion chassis and put in a Magewell capture card or a Blackmagic DeckLink Duo or any number of traditional, what I call traditional capture cards, and that will work too. So you can take a laptop and you can expand it up to 4 cameras. Now this one says, we'll go back up to it, we can do 4 HD cameras. There you go, right there. We can record 1080p, 25 megabits per second, and we can do up to 4 callers. So that's pretty cool if somebody wants to run a talk show or something like that. Not necessarily a sporting production, because we're not talking about doing replay on something like that. So laptop is cool. For what I would say for a home studio or a small studio where you didn't need a lot of horsepower, where you were just doing cameras and maybe callers. So a couple of guests in a live studio and then a couple of guests online. You could do that with a laptop. Obviously, the laptop's got to have the right horsepower. If we look back at this laptop, it is using an Intel Core Ultra 9, which is the old i9, and an NVIDIA 5060. So that's pretty recent GPU and a pretty high-powered CPU. So there you go. And then, of course, you've got some other options down here, but those are the same thing essentially. And vMix has done a whole wrap-up on some specific hardware that you can do for the laptop. So that's the laptop. If you're interested in a laptop, go to the vMix reference system page and get the specs, and don't compromise on the specs. If I say that once, I'll say it once. I'll say it just once. So when we get to traditional footprint PCs, we're talking about something that is desktop, might be a rack mount. I mean, we build them both ways. So if you want to take this Opal system that'll do 4 cameras of streaming and put it in a rack, yeah, we're happy to build it in a rack. That's not a problem. But let's look at the specs. So we've got 4 HD cameras up to 60 frames a second. 60p. P is progressive. 60 means frames per second. We're streaming up to 1080p, 20 megabits per second. We've got NDI or SRT, 4 cameras, total input of 40, and recording of 75 megabits per second. I've got my phone in my back pocket, and it is buzzing, and it is not the right time to be buzzing. So we look at more specifics here. I always like to look at the CPU first. So this is, again, this is the old i5, Intel Core Ultra 5, 14 cores. Really, that means maybe 6 power cores, and the rest of them are E-cores. So I don't give a whole lot of credence to E-cores. E-cores is an energy efficient core, which I think, I don't know, maybe half as powerful as a regular core, as a P core, a power core. So 14 cores, 14 threads. So one thread per core. We've got a capture card, Magewell, Blackmagic Decklink Duo. Those are good. 650 watt power supply. One of the things I've noted about power supplies is that that's one of the first things that begin to degrade on the PC. The voltage that the power supply puts out tends to settle over time. So I tend to want to build a power supply. You know, in this case, we're putting a 750 watt power supply in there instead of a 650, simply because we want the system to last as long as it can. Frankly, the first thing we have problems with is graphics cards, but that's a different story altogether. Let's go back over here. 16 gigs of RAM, that has been the go-to in the past. And if you're building a PC, remember, you're getting DDR5 RAM, not DDR4. Here's the graphics card. That's kind of a base model, the 3050. Remember, or not remember, if you've ever done any of the NVIDIA stuff, you know, it started out, what did it start out with? The 310. I think the first one I ever saw was a 620. And then I've got a system at my church that's running a 750 Ti successfully still after all these years. It just keeps on cranking. It's actually running, the vMix system is running 1080p 60. So the card is doing a lot of processing on that. Although I think it is coming in SDI, so maybe it's all CPU on that one. Anyway, the 3050 is sort of the base model of the 3000 series. So you've got the 3050. Shout out and a welcome to Gunnar and Jono, who are joining us today. The motherboard they spec is an MSI. I tend not to be an MSI guy, but you can do what you want. We would use an NVIDIA. We would use an Asus graphics card on that build. We've had great results with the Asus motherboards over the years. You know, we're familiar with the BIOS, familiar with the drivers that are needed for it, and how to tweak it and get it so that it really helps vMix sing well. So that's what we would do there, but that's okay. They're showing a fractal design Pop Air black case in the photo. Pretty simple. We have one similar to that. It has a little bit of extra insulation in the sides and the top, and so it's really, really quiet. That's nice in those environments where you need something that's quiet. And that is the Opal. So that's a 4HD. In some ways, that's the equivalent to the laptop, except you don't have to worry about that expansion chassis. And it's also using a lower powered processor than the laptop would. Yep. All right, let's go to our next one. This is going to be the Ruby. Now, the Opal and the Ruby were just recently kind of updated. I'd say recently in the last 6 months. And so you notice that when we look at the processor, it's using an Intel Core Ultra. That's the new version of the Intel. This one is using the Ultra 7, which of course is the old i7. It is speccing a 3-fan liquid cooler. They're only showing 1 fan in the picture here, but that one's not attached to the cooler. The cooler would actually be mounted up here in this area right here, or maybe across the top. It just sort of depends on how you would do it. This one is using the Asus ProArt Z890 Creator Wi-Fi, which is a nice little motherboard. Is this the one we need to be careful about? No, we'll get to that one in just a second. This one would allow, we've got enough horsepower here to do 8 HD cameras, streaming 1080p at 20 megs, 4 SRT, or NDI, total of 50 inputs, 2 recordings, and 4 cameras of instant replay. So there's a lot that we can do with this. We're also using an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 5060 Ti 16G. Now the 16G is important because there's also a 5060 Ti 8G. And the difference between 8 and 16 is, that's right, a lot. And in this case, it's the difference between a system that works really well and a system that glitches every now and then, because 16G, remember vMix is using, with a recent change to motherboards and graphics cards, something called resizable bar, means that the PC can now gain access to all of the memory on the graphics card, the unused memory. So vMix wants a lot of memory. That 12G represents the RAM on the graphics card. So, sorry, did I say 12G? I meant 16G. 16G represents the RAM on the graphics card. And any memory that the graphics card is not using for its own purposes, vMix will go in because of resizable bar and allow you to do that. And that's why you will notice in a high-end vMix system like that, you know, the little statistics down here at the bottom of the screen are the ones that say what the render time is, and GPU memory, CPU memory, that kind of thing, or CPU usage. The GPU memory might be, 60%, but that's measuring the amount of memory available in the graphics card. If you don't have resizable bar, in a lot of cases, that GPU memory will be 100% because there's just not much memory space there. So vMix puts everything it can in there, and then it has to go get it off the drive. So that's not preferred. So that's why this 16G right here is important for this particular vMix reference system, because we're going to do instant replay of 4 cameras. So we're going to have, where's our capture card right here? Yeah. In this case, they're saying, hey, you can put a Decklink Quad 2, which is an 8-camera SDI, or a Corvid 88, which I think is also an 8-camera SDI, but you can only do 4 cameras of instant replay. So there you go. The ATX case is a silent case. You can see it's a little different in the front. It's going to have a clear side. The ones that we sell don't have clear sides. We're not trying to impress anybody by lights and things like that are going on inside. And we think it's more durable if you've got a metal side than a plastic or a glass side. Here's a difference. vMix used to say, hey, we're just 16 gigs. But now that we're moving up in the systems, vMix wants 32 gigs in this case. vMix is not going to use all of it, but it wants it to be there for all the other things that are going to be needing it. It's suggesting a 2 terabyte SSD. We would typically build something like this with a 250 gigabyte SSD for the OS and software, a really fast one, and then 1 or maybe more than 1 secondary drive. I guess that would be a secondary drive and a tertiary drive, third drive. One for replay and one for recording. So there. Yeah. Okay. So that is the Ruby system, 8 cameras with 4 cameras of instant replay. And that's a pretty powerful system. That's a pretty powerful system. And a lot of people will ask the question, you know, Tom, if I've got one computer that's doing live streaming and switching, you know, I've got a technical director that's switching cameras and doing overlays and graphics and, you know, commercials and all this other stuff. It's a sports production. And I'm doing replay. What do? Well, if you can have a second operator and give that second operator a dedicated control surface, not a second keyboard, because that's going to confuse the computer, but you know, a Stream Deck or an X Keys or something even more specialized that might have a T-bar and a jog shuttle on it that will allow the replay operator to control the replay portion, and then give them their own monitor, maybe 2, one that shows the replay screen and one that shows a multi-view showing all the available inputs. So yeah, it can be done all on one system, but you need to organize yourselves accordingly. Yeah, we might talk some more on that in another video. Let's go to the Topaz. And the Topaz is 8 camera replay. The difference between this one and the Ruby that we were just talking about is the Ruby will take 8 cameras, but it's only going to replay 4. Now, in the real world, the world that we all live in, or at least a lot of us live in, 4 cameras might be the most that we can actually handle on replay. But there are going to be some people that want to have those extra four cameras available for those, you know, rare but wonderful shots. If they've got a camera that's close up, you know, on one guy, the whole game, the whole football game, or the whole basketball game, or the whole soccer match, they're watching one person in particular. And there may be, you know, 5 times during the course of the match that you have an opportunity to show that guy, but those 5 times are going to be money shots. That's where something like the Topaz system with 8 camera replay is going to come into use, because you're going to have all your cameras available. Now, the first thing we'll notice is this is the first time that we mentioned 4K. So we can have 4 cameras that are 4K up to 30p. Why is up to 30p important to know? Yeah. Okay. Think about replay for a second. If you're going to do slow motion instant replay, you're going to slow the video down. If the video is coming at 30 frames per second and you slow it by 50%, don't worry about doing the math. Just stay with me here. We're going to go from 30 frames a second to 15 frames a second. So the video will not be as smooth. It will be a little choppy. And if we go down to 25% speed, the video is going to be at 7.5 frames a second. So your replay will have some amount of, you know, jerkiness to it. That's the advantage of 60 frame a second cameras, is that when you bring it in, and even when you slow it down to 30 frames a second, you're still getting some pretty good video. Now, if you're watching ESPN and some of the other big sports productions, their replay cameras, the cameras that they're using for replay, are probably capable of doing 120 or 240 frames a second. Now, vMix will do 120 or 240 frames a second video. The trick is finding a camera and a capture card that'll get it into vMix. There's some out there, but they're just not doable yet. It was like, 10 years ago when we were trying to use off-the-shelf stuff for capture cards. And it was sort of working. Hey, Jesper, glad you're here. Capture cards were sort of working, but really they were, frame grabbers or whatever you want to call them. And when we had specialized capture cards come out that could go 60 frames a second, life was good. We're in the same boat with cameras now. We're waiting for that future time when we can get a 120 frame a second, 240 frame a second camera that's got zoom, got a good lens, got a reasonable output to whatever the capture card is that's going to take all that in. And the technology out there is still, it's still Betamax and VCR. They're still trying to figure out what is the technology that we're going to use to do this 120 or 240 frame a second video at 4K or 8K. We're not ready to go there yet. Okay, so that's my 30 frame a second speech, and that's why this 4K up to 30 is important, because 4K up to 30 may not look as good on a live stream as HD up to 60. Just saying, thinking maybe you're wasting your 4K, unless it's a beauty pageant, but then you're not going to be using replay anyway. All right, here's the note. This system supports only one capture card. Well, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. There are different ways to build essentially the Topaz system with space for more than one capture card. We're building a Topaz system for a client right now, and it has two capture cards. Has a 4-port HDMI capture card and a 4-port SDI capture card. And that seems to work pretty well, but we can't do it with this motherboard because that motherboard doesn't have enough slots and PCIe lanes available. So there we go. Also note that this is still the old spec because this is using an i9, the 13900KF. Now there's nothing wrong with the 13900 KF processor. It's a great processor. We're building a system in our studio right now using that processor. It was the one I was just telling you about. And it's going to be, a 120 millimeter fan radiator, water cooled. Yep. It's going to be great. Now in the vMix system, they're thinking you can use a DeckLink Quad, which is going to give you your H8D cameras, or the DeckLink 8K Pro, which is going to give you 4 4K cameras. And that's the 4K right here at 30 frames a second, or 8 HD at 60 frames a second. Note also that you're going to be able to stream 5 HD or 2 4K. You're also going to be able to bring in some NDI or some SRT. You can do 50 inputs. You can do 2 recordings in HD or 4K at up to 75 megs. And then you've got 8 cameras of HD instant replay or 2 cameras of 4K instant replay. Now notice it's 2 cameras on replay, but 4 cameras on input when you're talking about 4K. Yeah. All right, so we're looking at a 4060 Ti Super. That's a great graphics card. That's going to give you plenty of memory, plenty of processing power, and that is the camera that that is the card that I'm using in my system right now. Again, we've got another solid case, good there. They're talking about a 2 terabyte hard drive. Again, might do multiples, and we're talking about an 850 power supply. We'd probably go with 1,000 just to be on the safe side. And again, we've got 32 gigs of RAM, DDR5 with Windows 11. Now let's say that we wanted to do 5 cameras that were 5 cameras that were 4K, but not do a replay. Could we do that? I mean, here's the, the negotiating, or, what if we do this, but don't do this? What if we don't record to do 2 destinations? We only record to 1 destination, and we only stream to 1 destination, and we're not going to do replay at all. Can we do 5 4K cameras? Well, with this particular setup, let's see if we can or not. This system only supports 1 capture card. And the capture card they're recommending is the Blackmagic DeckLink 8K Pro, which is 4 cameras of 4K video. Now, if we had a system that could take more than 1 capture card, maybe we could scoot a Blackmagic DeckLink mini recorder 4K in there that would give us 1 extra SDI port that would take a 4K camera to give us a total of 5. Not sure. I've actually asked vMix this exact question today on behalf of a client who wants 5, but they don't want to do replay, and they want to do topaz. They don't want to go all the way up to the Obtainium. I'll let you know what I find out. All right, so that's topaz. Topaz is next to the top. Here's the top. It's the Obtainium. It is the big hammer. 4K and 8 camera replay. I want to cut to the chase on this one. We'll zoom all the way down here to the bottom. And this takes a Xeon processor. We have gone out of the Ultra Core and the Core Ultras and the i7s and the i9s and the i5s. I even got vMix to run well on an i3 in one system. But this guy, and let's look him up for just a second. We'll do a little work here. So we're going to Google that, and we'll go to the Intel, and we'll look at him right here, and he'll see we have 18 cores. And how many of those are E cores? 0. How many of them are performance cores, power cores? 18. All right, that's important to know. Here's the other thing that's important to know. We're going to scroll down a little bit, scroll down a little bit. Maybe I've passed it already. Yeah, I've passed it. By the way, it's a big mama jama. Come on, Tom. Well, I did pass it. I don't see it. It should tell me the PCIe lanes, the number of PCIe lanes, because that's important. We'll just keep looking here for a second. Bear with me. There it is. 64 PCIe lanes. Now, most of these systems that vMix is suggesting are using CPUs that might have 20 or 24 lanes, PCIe lanes available. So we have almost, well, probably tripled that with this particular unit, this Obtainium system. At the very beginning, I teased vMix because I could never find these parts. And I said, this is not an Obtainium system. This is an unobtainium system. So anyway, so here we go. So we can use 6 4K cameras. I thought it said 8 camera replay. Aha. But it's not 8 cameras at 4K. It's going to be 24 cameras at HD or 6 cameras in 4K up to 60 frames a second, or perhaps there's some combination thereof. So we could do maybe 4 4K cameras and then maybe 4 HD cameras so that we could get our 8 cameras that way. Doesn't really say, but it's a good, oh, well, it does say. Here we go, right down here. 8 cameras HD or 2 cameras 4K or maybe 1 4K camera and 4 HD cameras. 5 HD cameras, 6 HD cameras. I mean, it's just a matter of video. It's just processing. There's got to be a formula somewhere. I know the formula is in his head. You know who I'm talking about, don't you? My good friend Keith. Okay, so we're back here, and we're trying to figure out. Okay, so we've got 8 cameras HD, or 2 cameras 4K, and let's go from there. We can also have some NDI or SRT inputs. And interesting about NDI is not like SDI. Well, there's a real dumb statement, right? NDI is not like SDI. SDI is a cable that plugs in and carries video from a camera. NDI is a cable that plugs in and carries video from a camera, but vMix doesn't handle them the same way. vMix is able to use the processing power on the NVIDIA graphics card for the SDI video. That's why that is really important, and that's why in vMix, let's see if I can find it here, you have a lot of options for ticking a checkbox that says hardware streaming. What does that say? Can't even see it. It's hardware encoder. That's it, hardware encoder. That's the graphics card. NDI doesn't have an option for that. NDI is pure CPU. The one time I had it explained to me, they said, if you're going to figure it out, figure out 1 NDI camera per CPU core. So if you've got, you've got 18 cores, how many cameras can you do? This says you can do 12 HD. Obviously, some of the cores have to be left over for regular computer processing and then the vMix processing. Again, it says 50 inputs, and you can do 2 recordings, 2 at HD or 2 4K, like the Topaz. But when we get down into the specs, we see, okay, now we're looking at 64 gigs of RAM. We've got this Xeon CPU. We're still doing a big cooler, but that's a specialized cooler because it fits in a special way onto the CPU. Found that out the hard way. Lots of options on capture cards, depending on what you want to do. 1,000-watt power supply, might go 1,200 there. And then some options for storage. And the 4080 Super 16 gig. This motherboard, by the way, from Gigabyte, is, how would you say, touchy, not easy to work with. For example, we built a couple of systems using that motherboard. Probably won't again if we have a choice. But the BIOS wouldn't work with the latest version of Windows and the latest driver for the graphics card, the NVIDIA graphics card. And what we found out finally, after weeks of going round and round with Gigabyte tech support, is that, oh yeah, by the way, you can't use Windows 11 24H2. You have to use Windows 11 23H2, and here's a link to it because you can't find it anywhere else. So the excuse me, the Obtanium, one sec. That didn't help. The Obtanium of all the systems is probably the one that requires the most knowledge of PCs, CPUs, GPUs, motherboards, BIOSes, PCIe lanes, all that to make work the way it needs to work the first time out of the box. So if you've never built a system before, that's the one you want to start with. Yeah, that's not the one you want to start with. Having gone through all these, the best advice I can give to anybody that's saying, okay, I am doing live streaming. I want to go bigger and better than what I'm doing. I want to go about here. I've been here. Take a look at the vMix reference systems. Take a look on the vMix website there's a section, let's find it right here. There's a section called Partners. And you can go to resellers, and you can look for people that do custom systems. This just happens to be us, Eastern Shore Broadcasting. But you can people that find custom systems, and I think there are 3 or 4. You see, not everybody does it. LiveX does it up in Connecticut. Above the Cloud Media and Marketing does it in Atlanta. Cloud Media Group does it in Washington. Stream Dudes do it in Illinois. There are lots of different options for that to get somebody to do it for you. Or just to call and talk with them. You can call and talk with me, and we can say, okay, what do you want to do? Are you in the gray area between, the Topaz and the Ruby, or between the Topaz and the Obtanium? Or are you thinking about a laptop or a desktop? What are the pluses and minuses? And really kind of dig into that with you. And we're happy to help on that. And we can give you a detailed quote, not to exceed a certain number for a certain set of specifications. We do it all the time. I mean, that's what I do. I build PCs to be used with vMix. So, yeah. All right. So that concludes the show. We're going to go to the post show. See if we can find, if we haven't bored everybody to death, if we can't find a way to talk about some of this and see what your questions are. I'll be right back. All right. So Eric's here. Otis is here. Gunner's here. John's here. Jesper's here. And Jono has a comment. He's like, I was skeptical on MSI. I don't blame you. I bought one for this latest build a year ago, and it's been very good so far. My experience with MSI has been that of the dozen or more graphics cards that I've had to replace in the 3-year warranty period for the PCs I've built, more than half of those have been MSIs. So we don't buy any more MSI graphics cards. Motherboards, we don't intentionally run away from MSI, but have just found that ASUS has been easier to work with. The times that we've had an issue, ASUS tech support has been spot on and, ready to do an RMA. Excuse me. But that's our go-to motherboard unless we can't find, unless in the situation like with the Obtanium, the folks wanted to get gigabyte motherboard. I get that. Yeah, well, it comes with scars. Everything comes with scars. Thank you, sir. How was your time in Pensacola? Yes, I knew you meant the motherboard. I had an MSI motherboard as the main board in my live streaming rig for, well, up until I replaced it with the Asus, which was probably maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Now, this particular motherboard has had different CPUs in it. Started out with an i7, went to another i7, and currently have an i9 in it. It is the what is it? i9 10900KF. And I just happened to get a group of those on sale, used, and I've used them in systems that I built for family members and for myself. So yeah. Graphics cards are GeForce NVIDIA all day long. Yes, but only the 4000 and the 5000 series will do AV1. The older 3000, 2000 and below will not do AV1. And why is AV1 important? AV1 is a new codec that if you're streaming to YouTube, only last I heard, that you can cut your bandwidth in half or double your resolution for the same amount of bandwidth. So there's a great advantage for folks that are in a bandwidth limited situation. Am I running Windows 10 or Windows 11? Well, that's a great question, because my grandson called me last night and said, Pop, this computer you built me 2 years ago wants to update itself to Windows 11. Should I let it? He said, October's coming soon and we're not going to have any support. I mean, he read the fine points. He didn't read the deep stuff. I said, tell you what, I'm coming down to babysit you in September. Let's take a look at that. And what I hope we can do, he and I, in fact, if you've watched this show for a long time, he's been guest host on the show a couple of times, Parker Sinclair. What Parker and I will try to do is simply to update his system from vMix 10 to vMix 11. There are some systems, Happy Camper, that won't update. The only option, after you go through all the machinations of trying to update, they're going to say, well, you really need to install it from scratch. And I've done that with some, 10, 12-year-old motherboards. Works great. TPM's not an issue. Windows 11 just goes right in. But it doesn't allow me to carry everything with it. I have to start from scratch. I have to get the drivers for the motherboard and reinstall those. All the other drivers, for the graphics card and for any capture cards, anything like that. Obviously, I would have updated the BIOS on the motherboard as well. So it's like building a new PC. It really is in that sense. So hopefully, Camper, if I can just call you by the slang Camper, or just Hap. Hopefully, Hap, you can do an update and not have to do the full reinstall. Yeah. And back from vacation and his trip to Africa, John Gilbert is with us. If this is the same John Gilbert that's been gallivanting all around the world, causing trouble wherever he goes. Good day to you, sir. Maine is one that I wouldn't update. You got me on that one. You'll have to give me more information, because I don't have a clue what you mean by Maine. But fortunately, it's the same John Gilbert. Because otherwise, if it was a different John Gilbert, he'd be going, what? I did what? Yeah, you follow John Gilbert on Facebook, and he is all over the place doing all sorts of amazing things. I mean, he was visiting foreign countries and had pictures of himself with his vMix layout that he'd taken with him. His Maine computer. I thought you were talking about the state of Maine. Let's talk. Let's talk about what your options are, because I think you want to take the option. I think Windows 11 is stable. I think Windows 11 will do a fine job with vMix. The only thing is is lingering. Some people have had some issues with audio. Not that audio is important. Audio is definitely not important. You can do it without audio. You could just use closed captions. Why not? No, that's good. John, I'll be in the studio all day tomorrow. I've got some calls along the way, so if you call and get voicemail, leave me a message. I'll call you back for sure. Happy to help. John is down in St. Thomas. John, I always forget. American Virgin Islands, and has been a great customer for vMix systems from us and PTZ Optics cameras from us that we've sent down there for his church. Jono says, do you have any experience with Blackmagic Web Presenter HD or 4K? Yes, I do. It hasn't always been good. What do you want to do? You want to send something to the web presenter, or you want to get something from the web presenter? St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands. Thank you. Didn't mean to insult you with the with the St. Thomas thing. All right, John is making a remote preaching rig. We're about to give it a go to our camera source back to the studio for recording. What? I'm making a remote preaching rig. That is, you're going to be preaching from this rig. And we're about to give it a go to get our camera source back to the studio for recording. Going to use StreamYard to facilitate the interview co-preach, but want an HQ source, HQ like HD, high quality source to come back to Tennessee. John, I am not technically a Blackmagic guy. I am definitely not a StreamYard guy. So I'm not sure. I'd be happy to talk with you about it, though, you know, as you map it out. I mean, it's just a roadmap. You know, where does the video go? Where does the audio go? How does it get there? How do you know when it's there? What do you do if it doesn't get there? Whatever that technology is, doesn't matter. Oh, technically two streams, one for the real-time talking and one for the recording. Okay. Yeah. Piece of cake. In fact, it's so simple, I'll let my chauffeur do it. Was that the Albert Einstein joke where somebody was asking about where the chauffeur told Einstein, what you do is so simple, I've memorized your whole speech. You know, I could give it and answer any question that anybody has. And so Einstein takes him up on it, and they go, and he makes a presentation in some forum of physicists, and somebody asks the question, and the chauffeur, who has made the whole presentation now, says, you know, that's such an easy question. I'm going to let my chauffeur answer it for you. Eric asked the obvious question. Jono says, poor Jono. All right, tomorrow on his show, he's building it and starting a test, another test on Friday at the soundstage, and then on the road the following week. Woo! Woo! There you go. Larynx Broadcaster is, I think it's free. Maybe. Maybe. Why don't you just get a one of those Atomos Ninjas or whatever they are and record it live where you are? Just thinking. Just thinking. You never know. You never know. All right, let's see where we are. This is where we are. We're the little blue dot down there at the bottom. Down there in the middle. Do we have a way to make this bigger? Generally, there's a little plus somewhere. Maybe I can just double click it. There we go. So somewhere in here, right there, is my studio. Oh, nope, sorry. Right there. Right there. Right behind us is Fairhope East Elementary School. And 4 years ago, might be 5, but I think it was 4. I got a call from somebody that says, we're with the school system and we're looking for somebody to help us build a studio in the school. And we have been referred to you by vMix in Australia. And we talked for a while and I said, so where the school is in the US? And they're like, yeah, it's in the United States. It's in the South. I was like, really? Okay, interesting. Interesting. Where in the South? They said a little town called Fairhope. I'm like, oh, really? What's the name of the school? Fairhope East Elementary. Really? That's less than a mile from my studio. And they're like, really? So you never know. You never know. It's fun stuff. Jono wanted an SRT option that was hardware, mainly because I wanted to power it on, supply internet, and go. It's phase 1 of 4 phases. Sounds like you put a lot of thought in it. And you have done a lot of the engineering on the front end. Yeah. Yeah. And I would counsel simplicity. The fewest moving parts possible. Because the more moving parts, the higher likelihood of a problem. I wasn't going to say that. Yeah, thought quality is, and and as someone that does a lot of thinking, I can overthink something way off the map and go, what is the deal here? And have gotten it way harder than it needed to be. Simple is better. And Otis said, with vMix, there's no need for Web Presenter and StreamYard. Save the monthly subscription cost. I've saved a couple of churches money on the subscription. You can do this subscription vMix, $50 a month for as long as you need it. And then don't do it anymore. You and I are in lockstep on that process. Less moving parts, especially when I'm not in the field with this rig. Oh, so let's talk about making something idiot-proof. It's one thing for you or I, being the idiots that we are, to operate it. It's another thing to turn it over to somebody else and get them to duplicate our effort at being successful with less knowledge and perhaps a higher percentage of the idiocy gene. Just saying. Flip a switch. There you go. Flip a switch. That's all you need to do. Flip a switch. And connect a microphone and put the microphone in the right place and test it to make sure it works. And yeah, I've been there. I've been there. Yep. Well, Jono, I wish you luck. I wish you luck. Feel free to give me a ring if you would like to chat about it. I'd be happy to help you. I'm going to go back to work here. Loved hanging out with you guys. Always a pleasure. And I will hang out with you again next week. If you have a suggestion, something you'd like to see on the show, leave it in the comments. Don't forget to give us a like, a thumbs up, because let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. I don't need it for my own personal gratification. I need it for your gratification. Oh, I mean, of all the cheesy stuff you hear, give us a like because it helps the algorithm, which of course is true, which would mean, of course, more people would get to have a part in this knowledge that we're sharing back and forth, or idiocy, as the case may be. Yeah. Appreciate you guys. We'll catch you next week.